Welcome back to Green is Good. Today we've got Josh Levitt, who's the managing director of usecisco.com. And usecisco.com is the world's largest online network hardware outlet, offering thousands of network hardware products at significant savings, off list price. Josh, welcome from New Jersey today to Green is Good, and tell us what's going on with usecisco.com and how did you start this great concept?
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate you guys inviting me on your show. What's going on? We got so much going on, I can't even begin. We just launched a brand new website a few months ago, and really since then, it's just been off the hook over here. Specifically, to answer your question about the idea of the business, when we first came up with the idea, we really wanted to position the business on as many trends, that we could come up with, consistently, to sort of get a better success opportunity. And the first one was really the environment. So we looked at all the trends towards the environment, and, it was an obvious trend, going in that direction, and we figured selling, reusing or pre-owned computer equipment, or in our case, network hardware, is where we started, was on that trend. And then, the second trend really was the demand for bandwidth. When you look at the internet, everybody knows, well, I hope that, more and more people are getting online daily, and more people are using more bandwidth. They're moving to video, so, positioning the business where you're selling network hardware is pretty consistent with that trend.
Right.
And the last trend was e-commerce. When we look at the statistics, we see more and more people shopping online. And originally, we had some doubts about people spending, this kind of money, upwards of $1,000 sometimes with a credit card online. But what we found is that people were very comfortable doing that, and being on those three specific trends really helped our business.
Okay, so environment, bandwidth, e-commerce, three great trends that you identified. What year was this?
This was, the concept really was started in 2006.
Okay.
And it took us about a year to build the website. So I remember launching, the first version of the site launched in April of 2007.
Okay, so now we're almost. You're 8, 9, so you're 2.5 years into it. How has it gone, and what's really happening, and how has your potential clients responded to this great concept?
Well, it's been a roller coaster. Anyone who's been in the startup environment, I'm sure, would relate. It's been great. It's been a really awesome experience. Our customers are ranging from, a small law firm somewhere in Louisiana to a giant telecom company in Europe. And anyone's a potential customer. So we're meeting some really cool people. And, with the environment and the economy the way that it is, we're one of the few companies that, really do better in a slower economy, because simply by, the fact that we're selling pre-owned equipment, people were looking to save money. So when they shop with us, it's like when you buy a used car. When you shop with us, you're saving a fortune. People save 70, 80, 90% off a list.
So there's a great savings, you're saying. So there's value for the people who come to usecisco.com, plus you're also saving the planet.
Correct. We call it the combination punch.
The double benefit.
That's right.
Let's step back, though, now. Before you started this, you identified those trends. What made you think of the environment? Did you study the environment in college, or did you have some parents that were involved, or how did you even, how were you aware enough to see those three different trends?
It's funny. I was taking a class that I really didn't take seriously when I signed up for it in college, and it was called Environmental Ethics. And I had a great professor, and, we started to learn about what he called the evolution of ethics, and I always just took ethics for granted. You don't steal from people, and you don't kill people, and all the different, 10 commandments at a minimum. And I never really thought about, the origins of these things, and I started to learn in this class, if you go back a million years, that ethics have been evolving all the time. And generally they evolve because people collectively realize that it's good for everybody if we all behave in a certain way. And, a million years ago, maybe you didn't want to steal from somebody, and you figured out that if everybody didn't steal, we'd all be better off. And then a million years later, even in this country, you look back at some of the civil rights stuff going on and women's suffrage, and you realize that it's not just always based on altruism, but we're finding that, more and more as these ethics evolve, it's better for all of us. By allowing women to vote and by treating everyone fairly, it's better for our economy, it's better for businesses, and I don't see any different with what's going on in the environment. And I looked at it and I said, I think that the next big trend is the environment, and even when I was a kid, we didn't talk about these things as much, and we didn't think about littering even the same way, at least in my town, the way that we do now.
Right.
So I really believe that the environment's the next big swing in terms of, agreed upon ethics globally.
Where do you grow up? What town?
I grew up in West Orange, New Jersey.
Great. Okay. So, like you said, littering wasn't a taboo then like it is today. So you're saying the environment equals sustainability equals what Mike and I talk about here all the time, planet, people, and profits. So use Cisco, it seems as though it's covering all three. As you say, your people who use it are saving money. You're saving the planet, and we assume it's a profitable business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. How many employees do you have there?
Well, we have 7 full-time right now, and then we have quite a bit of part-time that we integrate all over the place. So, it really depends. At any given time, you could say we have about 14 people on staff.
So in many ways, you're the other side of the e-waste business, like electronic recyclers is the end of life. You're on the the ITAD or the asset management side of it. So tell us a little bit what you know about e-waste and it's why you're saving the earth by recycling these materials instead of letting them just go into landfills or the oceans or just to be dismantled incorrectly. How does what you're doing save the planet with regards to carbon outputs and other things?
Well, quite simply, it's the concept of recycling. People don't realize the significance of e-waste, and I'll get into that in a minute if you want. But
yeah.
E-waste is always on the rise, and it's giving off a ton of pollutants. E-waste is actually responsible for 3% of the global carbon output.
Wow!
And just to put that into perspective for you, that would be equal to the entire airline industry.
Wow!
People don't think it's such a big deal, and it involves electronics, it involves computers and TVs, and we don't really have legislation in place yet.
You're right.
Type of thing, but these things get broken down illegally, and mostly in developing countries, and they're giving off pollutants and carbon like you can't believe.
Right. So now you're taking these usable electronics and you're reselling them.
Correct. So when you buy something pre-owned or you buy it, from us, then it wouldn't have gotten thrown out. It's being used somewhere else, and it has a lot of life left. So it really reduces the level of e-waste.
Given that you're on the World Wide Web, usecisco.com, and you're a virtual company in that respect, the world is your oyster, Josh. Where is your business coming from primarily? Is it North America? Is it Europe? Is it Asia? And where do you see the growth coming for usecisco.com from now to the future?
Well, prior to the launch of our version 2, which was only about 3 months ago, I'd say 80% of our orders were domestic. And mostly from the two coasts, the East and the West Coast. And now, since we launched, we had international business, but since we launched, we've probably moved closer to about 35% international, and we expect that to go up. When we syndicate the website in foreign currencies and we host them locally abroad, I really expect that number to go up quite a bit.
Well, we're going to talk more about that. We're just going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with Josh Levitt, who's founded usecisco.com, and learn more about e-waste and how to save money and save the planet at the same time. Come on back to Green is Good. Welcome back to Green is Good. Today, live from New Jersey, we have Josh Levitt from usecisco.com, and Josh is one of the owners of usecisco with his angel investor, Joe Asadi. And usecisco.com is really a tremendous and successful website, and we ask all our listeners to avail themselves and use it. You get to save money and save the planet at the same time. Josh, welcome back.
Thank you, John.
Hey, so who is your client? Is it businesses? Is it just regular homeowners and consumers? Who's the majority of your client today, and how is this going to evolve?
That's one of the coolest things about this business. Everybody's a potential client, and it's so much fun to see the orders coming in over the web. You see some really exciting names and businesses we all know of, huge enterprise companies, and then you see even the smallest city governments, and then you see companies or 2 or 3 people, law firms, and then you see people ordering to their own apartments, for their own CCNA labs, Cisco students or whatnot. So, we really cover the gamut. Every vertical, every size, every country. Well, not every country, but
right.
We're working on that.
Where are you going to first, when you say you're going to register usecisco.com in other countries, what countries are you going to go out first? Are you going to go after the EU? Are you going to go after Asia? Where's your next big frontiers that you're going to be setting it up and then having local enterprise run it for you?
Well, most likely that will have to do with some thorough analytics of the current traffic. And
sure.
We have to also consider operations because, we physically ship all this equipment. So the EU makes a lot of sense for us.
Right.
The dollar is not as strong right now, so when they're already saving, 80, 90% off a list, and then the dollar is weak for them, and then, it can make up for a lot of the shipping right now. And if we get something over there locally, the savings will be even bigger for those folks. And, we're looking also, I think, in Russia, Australia, parts of Asia, where we can, and just about anywhere. I mean, it's limitless as far as shipping goes.
Got it. And talk about e-waste a little bit. Is e-waste as big a problem in Europe and Asia as it is here in North America?
Yeah, I mean, e-waste, when it comes to Europe, they're a lot further ahead than we are,
right.
I think, with regards to e-waste. They've already passed legislation over there, and they categorize e-waste as the fastest-growing form of rubbish, I guess, as they would say over there. But, they passed legislation. There's already a lot of regulations regarding OEMs and keeping track of equipment that they sell and how they dispose of it and how they're buying it back and remarketing it. And they're way ahead of us on that front. And in the U.S., there's a lot of talk about a lot of legislation, and most of it just keeps getting kicked around, and we haven't really passed anything quite like WEEE, like you
right.
see in Europe.
The WE initiative.
Yeah, correct.
So what? So okay. So what's the dark side of the industry? People who don't use your website, people who don't avail themselves both on the sale and the buy side of usecisco.com. What happens when electronic waste is not recycled or resold appropriately? What happens then?
What happens is, unfortunately, that quite a bit of this stuff, and most of it's shipped often illegally to some developing countries and places where the standards are a lot lower than they would be here, and it's a lot cheaper to get it disposed.
Right.
Places like parts of China and India and Kenya, and you can see footage of this stuff going on. They're breaking this stuff down illegally, and the health risks locally and for all of us is devastating when you look at it, and that's really what's going on right now.
Let's go back to Use Cisco. So now your site, your wonderful website, you sell lots of switches, routers, firewalls, VoIP, voice over internet protocol products and stuff like that now, and hard to find stuff like modules and memory. I mean, I've been on your site. It's a great site, but wait a second now. It's, my dad always used to say, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. What's the downside here? Give me. What am I supposed to be worried about? Our listeners are listening, and if they're going to save money, they're going to save the planet. Is there any downside? Does this stuff come with a warranty? Tell us what's up.
Yeah, I don't think there's a downside. When you buy in the secondary market, there can be if you don't know what you're doing, and you really got to be careful who you buy it from. And you got to look at it like, when you buy a used car. If you buy it from somebody that's not reputable, you could be in trouble. But if you go to a bona fide organization that's thoroughly testing it and supporting it and warranting it, you're much better off. And with us, what we do is we're really, really thorough about, first of all, where we get it from. Most of it comes out of working environments, and it gets tested thoroughly. We have a 28-point test list over here, and it's not just functionality, but we test it cosmetically. And when we sell it to you or anyone else on the website, we send it with a 2-year warranty. And that's our way of saying that, we'll replace this thing. If anything goes wrong, you don't have to worry about it. So, we stand behind it. And really the last thing I think that people freak out about a lot when they think about buying used or pre-owned is often the support. And in a case like Cisco, for instance, you could buy a maintenance contract for a part, and you can still do that for the most part with stuff you buy from us, but people are afraid they won't be able to get support on it. And we do offer support, and a lot of people don't realize that, and we want to get that message out there. We offer it a la carte, so it's really as you use it. So you don't need to commit to a big contract and then, never really use it or only use it for a couple hours.
Right.
We'll replace the thing the next day, and our engineers will talk you through, and we can put someone on site to help you integrate it or install it and troubleshoot it. So, we do all of it, and I really don't know what the downside is, to be honest with you.
But so all our listeners hear this again. All your products are sold with a 2-year warranty.
That's correct.
That's great.
It was always a 1-year warranty, and then we started promoting a 2-year warranty, and the response was so good that we decided just to hold on to it, and it really hasn't hurt us.
So usecisco.com. which is your great website, who is your major competitors? Are you number one in the world? Are you number 10? Do you have 50 competitors? Where do you rank with regards to what you do?
Well, we're really unique. There's nobody really doing what we're doing right now. There's a lot of people out there, it's fragmented, that will sell you pre-owned equipment and they'll test it like we do. They don't have an online store and they don't sell it in an e-commerce format. So, there are people out there locally that you can get on the phone with, and there are often consultants too, and they'll help you source equipment in the secondary market. But there is nobody with a comprehensive site with the line of products that we have, with the exception of an auction site like eBay. And eBay is another place you could go to buy this stuff. The downside to that is, I think I've heard statistics, and I don't want to quote them, but a huge number of products sold on eBay are counterfeit, coming out of China. So you got to be careful, and you're buying it in an auction, and so that means it could be up to 7 days till you source it, and most of our customers, I'd say half of them, need stuff right away. So eBay can't really fulfill that.
Well, plus the fact,
too, it's not warranted on eBay either. So.
Yeah, well, there's that. There's the warranty, plus the fact there's not the tech support.
Correct.
So the future. You've built this business the last 2.5 years. I assume it's growing at a very fast clip. I mean, don't give us numbers. I don't want to give away any trade secrets, but what has it grown year over year? 10%, 50% year over year, 100%? What's your vortex right now on growth?
100%.
100%. And what do you foresee 2010?
Really tough to say. I mean, we're growing exponentially, so I could see us easily in 10 million and up range.
So another 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so secondary market. Talk about the secondary market in the future of usecisco.com. Do you see the secondary market growing, or what does your future hold as this evolves?
I have no doubt the secondary market's going to grow, and there's been a lot of studies done by Gartner about the secondary market and all the data points that massive growth. But I think that all that stuff is great, but I think you have to look at our culture, what I talked about earlier about ethics, and the amount that Americans consume. And I really think you have to start thinking about our attitudes about reusing stuff and buying pre-owned. And I think that, especially with electronic equipment and IT, that's going to become more of a mainstay and sort of commonplace, I think, in the next few years. And also a lot of it has to do with legislation, so that could often push it along. So, we could very much be like the car industry, where the secondary market is pacing with the primary market. So you say legislation. Explain to our listeners what you mean by legislation. That could affect the industry and also affect the earth, so people can know how to support their local congressmen and senators to push for good bills to be passed. What are you speaking of exactly, so our listeners can get involved? Well, I could give you a specific example.
Go ahead.
There's a Rep. Mike Thompson in California, and he's been introducing something called the National Computer Recycling Act, and it's just been stalled in Washington repeatedly, from what I understand. And since then, several states have started passing some of their own legislation, not necessarily anything on the federal level, but and a lot of it's sort of mirrored after what's going on in Europe. But there really is nothing like the WE, which is the waste electrical and electronic equipment like they have in Europe yet. And if we had something like that here, you would see most of the stuff that is getting disposed of illegally back in the market while it still has good life left. Got it.
So you're saying good legislation can ban these things from landfills, also stop the illegal exporting of them to Africa, India, and China, where over there they're broken down illegally by children in many rights. So human rights violations are being violated there, as well as environmental harms. And I'll even tell you of a new one that just came out this week. Interpol has gotten involved now because some of these electronics are being sold illegally as new with chips that have been washed but not well to NASA and our Defense Department, and now it's an issue of national security, Josh. So that's what just came across the wire this week.
Yep, we've come up across that
okay
times, and we've given people certificates that the stuff that they've given us has been wiped out completely. So anything that's secret or confidential.
Right.
But the bottom line is, I think the onus is really on the OEMs, and it's going to take some legislation to push them in the right direction.
Yeah, and also I want to talk a little bit about your, and I've read it, so I could say this from experience. Your blog, your Green Your Network blog. To tell our listeners a little bit about it and where to find it, and how often do you blog to it, and why it's so important.
Well, the blog is really a lot of fun, John, and it sort of came about when we got into this business. We just kept stumbling upon all these really cool ideas, and companies that were doing fun and exciting green things or taking responsibility, and they were good examples. And what we decided to do is to start collecting them and distributing them on the blog, and it's consistent with what we do, considering the environment. So what I really try to highlight on the blog is good ROI examples. I really believe there's a lot of great places out there where you can help the environment and save money at the same time. And I don't just mean by buying used, but areas where, you can replace your light fixtures with something more environmentally conscious that uses less energy, and then you can see a reduction in your electric bill. And that's an obvious example, but there's products out there that will actually trim off the fat in your printer. And all the stuff you didn't intend to print, you could click on what you do and don't want to print, and you eliminate these runoff pages coming out of your printer, and the statistics will show you that if you install these things, they'll, depending on the size of the office, it'll pay for itself in less than a year, and then hopefully, and then after that, it's just saving money in terms of paper consumption and ink and the environment over time. So we look for really cool stuff to highlight. And
it's like Mike and I with Green is Good. You're doing the same thing just with your blog.
You're right, absolutely.
So how often do you hit it? Like how often do you hit the blog and post some thoughts and post some great concepts?
It used to be all the time, and then we kept getting busier and busier and busier here, and it's really sad because I had a great following at one point, and I had friends from college saying, we were reading your blog at work, and then I realized I knew you, and it was so much fun, and unfortunately I've neglected it here and there. I pick it back up at times, and it's gotten to where I'm embarrassed to say, I get an entry in there about once a month. And
you're a victim of your own success of usecisco.com.
I know, but I have to make a commitment. Hopefully, we'll get some more help in here. We need it, and we can get back on that pretty regularly.
Hey, I know your business is really, you don't just talk a great talk, Josh. I know that. You walk a great walk. You're doing great things. And we're down to the last couple minutes, and I'm just going to mention, I know your business, you use, you do light bulbs that are green and efficient light bulbs, and you use recycled packaging when you send out the material. Do you have a couple of pearls of wisdom, of green wisdom to share with our listeners as we take out the last 2 minutes and we have to close our show? Do you have a couple of great pearls of wisdom?
Well, the only thing I could say regarding that is that I hope that people more and more will get committed to the environment. It's not just the issue of global warming. It's not just 2 generations away, 3 generations. This is something that could impact our own children someday very soon, and every little bit helps. And most people, they just think all the time that, my little contribution isn't going to make any difference at all. But, obviously, if everybody changed the way that they think, we would have a much better world for our children.
Well, Josh, you are so right, and Mike and I are always talking about little differences adding up to big change, and we just want to thank you for calling in from New Jersey today, and your concept is really inspirational. UseCisco.com. We wish you continued success, and we ask our listeners to go to your website and to save money for themselves and also save the planet. And Joshua Levitt, you are living proof that green is good.